Welcome to Beyond the Code podcast by CodeMonk.ai. Today we have an interesting guest, Desai, who leads the engineering team at Xfinity. And in today's talk, we are going to cover on how to go about building a high-performing engineering team, what attributes to look out into your next hire. So we're also going to talk about the power of community building, networking, and developing your career as you grow, and some of the disruptions that we are witnessing in day-to-day activities, right? So here, folks, welcome Kandarp. Hey, Kandarp, how are you doing?
Hey, Malik, good to see you, man. Things are going well. How about you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Just busy hosting all these podcasts and trying to scale our platform. But hey, man, good to be connected with you after a long time. I know that we belong to the same hometown, right? And
Yeah,
after a long many years, we got reconnected through a common friend.
that's
So
right.
I'm more excited to know about your background. What are you up to nowadays? And tell me your story.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So let me start, by introducing myself. My name is Kandarp Desai. I work at a company called Xactly. I work at the SVP of Engineering at Xactly. I've been within Xactly for quite a while, played a different role to Xactly, but I started my career as an hardware engineer back in Cisco. And right after that, I played a founding engineer roles at a couple of startups. Went into the real-time bidding ad platform, so I was like working as an engineer in ads. And then right after that, I switched to the B2B side, right, which is the building the enterprise, enterprise software. And since then, I've been within Exactly. Right now, I'm based out of Bay Area, and we have a team in offices all across the world. Well, if you don't know exactly, we provide platform and a solution to optimize and innovate your entire end-to-end revenue lifecycle. It's so starting from the sales pipeline management, from the to the forecast, to the planning, to the compensation and entire optimization of it, right? So it's an end-to-end revenue management lifecycle.
That's pretty interesting, man.
Yeah.
Now tell me about your transition from hardware to software, right?
Uh, yeah.
Tell me more about that. How did you find programming hardware?
Yeah. So, I started at Cisco back in the days, and I was working in 7000 series switch. The primary coding language was C. I had a great mentors there, so I was fortunate to have those mentors. But after some time staying there, what I realized is the way things works in hardware. You do the build, you process things, you do the debugging. It requires a different set of mindset, requires this different set of skill sets, and it defines require different set of patience because working with hardware is not easy. And I felt that this is not a lot for me. Also, I wanted to dabble into the startup world. But working at Cisco gives a different set of accomplishments, and always wanted to dabble into a startup world. So I started to talk to a few friends and stumble upon the opportunity for the company who were building the ad platform, and that's how I got introduced into software world.
Pretty interesting, man. Pretty
Yeah,
interesting. I want to sidestep a little bit more, right?
sure.
So, when I've been involved in a startup for, I don't know, almost 15 years now, involved in all sorts of startup. I've done one hardware startup as well. Didn't really go very well. Um, but I've been involved in that, and generally, if you read YC like mantra, they call it like I think, is it a tar pit idea, if I remember the
Hmm.
terminology correctly. But generally they don't invest into an hardware startup, right? Difficult to scale, difficult to sustain, very difficult to protect the IP and so on. But at the same time, we have seen some really good startup come out in the hardware space, like Ring, acquired by Amazon. So the iRobot, the vacuum cleaners, right? Now, of course, you have plenty of knockoffs out there, but it's a good combination of a hardware and a software. The whole indoor navigation software behind that was an amazing idea. And is one of the most successful hardware company as well. So, what's your take on that? What do you think? Is hardware startup a bad idea, or is it a good idea?
Yeah, I don't think it's when we call a bad a good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. It's just require a different DNA to build a hardware startup because it comes with within software you can build a prototype within like a week now or less than a week if you want with an AI, and you can pitch your idea to the investors. Versus on hardware, it starts with the actual designing of it, right? The chip design, and you have to find you first convince someone to invest because it's a long-term game. It's not like you started to see the customer from day one. Of course, that has been changing in at least a recent landscape with the software modules where they build the software modules and try to do some POC on it, and commoditizing some of the smaller hardware. We are seeing that a lot, but in general, it's a different mindset, different DNA, which requires you to build a hardware startup, and which is why you see that there's less hardware startup compared to the software, right? Like to give an example, if you're building, let's say, NVIDIA chips, right? If you're building, and if you're using the CUDA, which is a software module on our GPUs, you can build like 10 different products on top of it. But there's only one NVIDIA, right, who is
Yeah,
actually providing that CUDA. So we can build tens and hundreds of startups on it, but so it also it shows how powerful the whole hardware infrastructure is and how sticky it is. Like once you find your niche, once you find what you want to do, right, and you are on it, you will find a success eventually. Like the company ARM is a great another example. I mean, NVIDIA tried to acquire them some time ago, but unfortunately, it didn't go through. But this is a great example where ARM tried to build something which is complementing NVIDIA. It took some time to establish. It took some time to like get some customers on it, versus the software where you can start signing up the customers and generate the revenue within a pretty short amount of time, right? So that's I feel it's a major difference.
yeah. Great that you mentioned one of our customer like ARM.
Yeah.
Is actually one of our clients. Is one of
Okay.
our long-standing clients. We have been working with them for many years. So we, as a company, are very familiar with not really the hardware design, but like the software that goes behind that in terms of designing the hardware. And we are quite proud. We are a very small team, but at the same time, we are working with ARM, which is one of the largest chip maker in the world now. Right, the ARM architecture is pretty much everywhere, and I'm really proud of my team who works very closely with them on some really cool products. I can't really tell you too much about it, but some really cool products that we work with them,
Yeah,
which is also used by their customers, like companies like ARM,
that's right.
Samsung, Google. Everybody is using the product that my team designed and built, and still support.
That's great.
So that's a story, a really proud story. But we can't talk too much. Okay, I can talk passively, but can't really tell you what the project is about. In a way, it's kind of a as a growing company, you want to talk about your achievements, and this is
Yeah.
something that we can talk, but not too much. Right? Anyways, moving on from there. In your role, what's your day-to-day role like currently? What are you involved in?
That's a great question. So, I run the engineering and operations for the Xactly, and what does it really mean, right? So the day-to-day role is basically it involves wide variety, the spectrum, starting from working with my team on designing the software all the way till execution and deployment. But when you are in the leadership role, it starts with the strategic thinking, starting with thinking how you want to design your roadmap, how you want to help your customer, how you balance your stake against your technical depth, right? How you want to, figure out the innovation, right? So the balancing the customer ask versus the innovation, as well as technical depth. That's going to be a big challenge when you design in any roadmap. So it starts with strategic thinking of it. then you design a roadmap, you start executing on it, and we generally do like a yearly roadmap design, but we are quite agile in terms of how we execute that roadmap. So every 3 months, we review the roadmap and we figure out, what are the changes that we are seeing in the market. Do we need to adjust? Do we need to make some changes, right? What we decided 3 months, 6 months, 12 months ago. Um, and we make those smaller adjustments. So you can think about pulling the levers according to the market needs, according to what we are hearing from customers, and execute on it, right? So that's pretty much my generally the way the year starts and the year end in terms of the execution of the product.
That's pretty solid, right? Look, I worked as a product manager as well, and designing roadmap or prioritizing your roadmap, it's quite challenging. Especially in a startup world, your roadmap keeps on changing like every day. Everything is a priority, and yeah, this must be delivered tomorrow is our number one priority, and the next day is change. Oh, sorry, you know what? That's no longer a priority. Something else has come up, and you're continuously juggling. What is the stuff you need to deliver? I've done both, like a corporate role, like product management and startup product management as well. And there's a lot of good frameworks out there which helps you with defining your roadmap or managing your roadmap. Running experiment and stuff like that. But I believe, even my own experiences, I think a lot of those frameworks kind of applies um, to product which is already there in the market, which is a little bit mature. And when you're right at the beginning, when you don't really know how your roadmap is going to go or what strategy is going to happen, you have a vision, but you still don't know how you're going to get there. You have an idea of what your customer or the problem statement is, but you're still trying to prove whether that's really is the problem, that's really is the solution, right? You go with an assumption. The customer does completely different thing than what you
Right.
assumed the problem and the solution would be. They like the solution, but they use the solution in a different context than what you think. And you can't really A/B test too much, especially if you are in a B2B product space where the in the beginning, I'm talking pre-Series A or seed stage startup, right, where you don't have a lot of users or customers to really experiment. Even if you experiment, the data set is so small to make any probabilistic sense out of it. The frameworks that you apply on a large scale. Let's say you trying to optimize A/B, like two journeys. Trying to run an A/B test. If you have millions of users, you can easily do that. What do you do? When you are having like tens of users, right? Or not even tens, single digit users, right?
Right.
I've found that navigating that part really challenging in
Yeah.
the early stage environment.
No,
Um,
absolutely. I think we're talking about the product market fit when you're trying to find the product market fit, and its initial days is always hard, right? And as our current president used to always say that if Henry Ford would have asked his customer what they want, they would have said, "I want a faster horses," right? Instead of
Correct.
like, so he would not have built a car, he would have built a faster horses.
Yeah. So
So
don't you think,
yeah,
as a product manager, we are always taught on listening to your customers, always
yeah.
listen to what your customer needs, try to solve for your customer's problem. Don't you think then it's like a little bit of a flawed advice?
Um, well, again, I work closely with my peers on the product side, and so what I have learned from them is it's always a right mix of balance, right? When in the situation, you cannot have one size fits all for every time you're doing the things, right? What I mean by that is, let's say if you are building, if you have an established product and if you're building the product which is adjacent to that product, which is the existing market, I think that gives a different set of framework versus if you are trying to build something which doesn't have a product market fit, right? Which you're trying to find a product market fit. So that requires different thinking where you have to go with your gut feeling more, right? And somewhat research versus, let's say, if you're building a product in the SPM space, sales performance management space, there are very standard set of rules that if I'll go against, right? I talk to my customer, what are they looking for? I know the revenue management life cycle. So I know certain things. So I know how to navigate and create sort of a closed product market fit, right? Versus if I'm building a startup, which is completely new idea, hasn't been explored, and if I'm going after one niche, then I have to set a different set of rules. So if I'm creating a market versus market already exists, like your TAM already exists, I have to follow a different, framework, and you have to keep reiterating on it, right? And you ask about overall the leadership style earlier too. And what I always feel is, you have to lead by examples, right? Whenever you're building, regardless of which stage of company you are in, right? You have to develop the strategic thinking. You develop build high IQ, EQ team, right? The IQ is given, right? And one of my mentors always talked about, you will find people who are pretty smart, right? But that's not enough when you are building the team. You need to find people who can trust each other, right? The team health is something and extremely important when you're building the team, when you're building a product, right? You need to have a healthy team because, you can hire always right set of folks who have a great IQ, but can you find people who have a great EQ, right? Which is empathy, self-awareness, right? Working with a trust, with a commitment. And that is the main factor when, what I call building any product. So like building any product, I would start with the people, right?
So
You need
that's
the
what I
right
was
set
going
of
to
people.
ask you as well. That,
Yeah,
regardless of what you're building, you got to have a
right,
great team behind that,
right,
right?
right.
So how do you go about finding or building a great team?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So of course, the technical ability of the team, what you are trying to hire, that's like a table stake, right? So you go through a standard sort of coding question. And, the other thing is that will give you some idea how good of an engineer or someone who you're looking for is in that technical expertise, right? But the next set of things which you always want to look for is EQ, as I mentioned. You need to ask yourself, is this person is gonna lift the rest of my team member, right? Or is this person is gonna diminish the rest of the team member,
Yeah.
right? I would rather have someone who knows 80% of the technical skills, but someone with a great EQ, right, who can lift the entire team. Doesn't have to be like, the smartest person in the room, right? As far as the person knows what we're trying to do, he gets it, right? He or she gets it, what we're trying to do, and commit to it. Who has a great empathy, states of awareness, who has an ability to reinvent themselves, challenge themselves, right? And make sure the people who are surrounded have an equal stake and a trust amongst them. If that is when getting created, right? And that would be second factor, which I feel I have to consider in the hiring, right? If I don't consider it, then it's gonna be I won't be able to. I will be able to build maybe a small team, but then when it comes to scaling, I won't be able to scale my company
Yeah.
because you
So
can build a POC, you can build like, initial 10, 15 customer, but do you want to build a company that can sustain for 10 years? And that's this set of members will do.
yeah, well, look, I agree with you that when you're trying to build a team, it's not an easy task. Technical
Right,
skills, I think, is an easier part to,
right,
identify and test for. But the rest of the things like their soft skills, their behaviors, their ways of working and all, is not an easy one to evaluate. Frankly, in my opinion, I just find this whole recruitment like useless, to be honest, outdated. It's a very reactive process. You create a jobs post, you get tons of CVs, hundreds, 200, your HR team spends, I don't know, months, weeks trying to filter everything. And they shortlist some interviews. You then ask them to do coding, technical test, whatever. You then go through interview, multiple rounds of interviews, whatever, and then you finally make an offer. And then the candidate may say, "Yeah, sorry, but I taken another job,"
right. Correct.
or even if, when they accept the role, they may come on the flow may not fit with your team. You think that they will, but they don't.
True.
And or they may have conflict with some of your team members and creates more friction in your existing team, for good or bad, I don't know, but they might create friction. And it's a continuous process, right? So I find that like whole journey really, really frustrating. And to be honest, I really want to change and disrupt that with our platform, that we are working towards. Hopefully, I don't
Okay.
know whether we'll get there or not.
Sure.
But just building more on that. In your organization or in your day-to-day setup, right? What is your process look like? Apart from the usual CV filtering and all, what is one thing that you do differently than maybe somebody else?
Yeah. So exactly, we have a mantra of care, what we call customer focus, accountability, respect, and excellence. That's like our four, what we call a motto of the company, what we call a core values of the company, right? So once a candidate pass the basic things about the tech skills, the soft skills, and all those things, the hiring manager and our HR team look for that core values, right? They will try to figure out if this person is a culture fit or not, right? And that's when we rank and when we give a score to like each and every individual attribute. This core value comes at a very the center of everything, right? So we have done the interviews. We have candidates who are like super smart, but were not fitting the core values, right? So my team and HR decided we are not going to make an offer to this person, regardless of how smart this person is, right? Because it's not culture. It's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for them too, because it's not something we are doing we're not doing a justice to them as well, whoever is going to join our company, because if they're going to leave 3 months, it's a waste of time for them, it's a waste of time for us. So when you ask about distinction, what you do is, so culture fit is one of the most important factor we consider in the hiring. And when we hire someone during the last round, the HR and hiring manager, that's their focus. They don't ask any technical questions. They just know more about their background, what they have been through in their life, what kind of challenges they have been through, right? And it's not job related, about some of the personal things that they can share. And that tells you a lot about a candidate, how much hustle they have to do, or what kind of challenges they faced recently, right? And how they overcome those, or they fail, right? Someone who's actually ready to accept that, hey, I had a X, Y, and Z challenges, and like I tried this X way, it didn't work, right? But it's in a personal life. I took this approach, and so it gives you that, this person is a culture fit or not.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Like, just trying to dwell more onto
Yeah.
that. As companies become more product led, more agile in their product delivery, do you think there's a role for this long term permanent employment anymore? Because your requirements change, your priorities change. What you need today may not be relevant in 6 months or 12 months' time, the skills you need today. Also, on the talent, maybe UK and US markets are different, but in the UK, the average tenure of a permanent employee is less than 18 months within tech. So then you will be questioning, like, do I really need to think about long term and hire somebody for long term? So I just need to focus more on my immediate priorities. How can I get the immediate, list of work completed as quickly, as efficiently as possible, right? And focus on that part. What's your opinion around that?
Great question. I think you're talking mainly about, okay, if a short-term success is a long-term, and I strongly believe that regardless of the tenure of the company, or someone, how senior he or she, or they are, I would always look for someone with the right attitude. Doesn't matter if that candidate is going to stay with me for 6 months or 60 years or 6 years, right? Because, as I mentioned, team health is something extremely important for me. And if I don't have team health, I can just, break my company within 3 months, because one bad seed can just, spoil the entire corpse, as you know. And it's not like that seed is just, it won't give you fruit. It just doesn't work with the other seed. It needs to grow in the isolation. It cannot grow with the other seeds, right? And that's the analogy I always use. Like, if this one new seed, right, can excel and can help all of my other seeds, and all of the other seeds can also like easily adopt the new seed. Absolutely, that's what I look for, right? Regardless of their tenure. And you brought an interesting point about someone in a longer in the job. And I've been with this is my longest tenure right now, exactly. But one of the things that I learned early in my career, and thanks to my mentor at the various companies, is you have to keep reinventing yourself according to the industry trend. To give an example, I started as a hardware engineer, went to a ads business, then went to a software, enterprise software. I started with an SMB business. Then I learned the data platform because a few years ago, like the big data was big, right? It's like it was a big thing. Then I moved from there to management, right? And then now this whole AI and Gen AI and LM has become so. I'm learning that. So you have to keep reinventing yourself, and that is the another attribute I think you should look for in a candidate, where is this candidate is ready to reinvent themselves, right? At a certain interval of time, and you can definitely see either. It doesn't matter if it's a fresh grad out of college or someone who's at 20 years of experience, right? When you talk to them, you will be able to figure out if this person is reinventing themselves or not, right?
But
And as far as they are reinventing, it doesn't matter if this person is for 3 years, 4 years, 15 years, 20 years at the same company, because they have been reinventing themselves for a while. I mean, I give an example. I met someone who was at the IBM for a long time, right? But that leader has been reinventing himself for so long, right? That now he's running the entire, IBM Innovation Lab, right? But again, he didn't started with an attitude that I'm going to be here for 15 years or 20 years, right? He just say, okay, I just want to do something new, right? And he's somehow able to find those opportunities. So going back to a question about being a long tenure, it's always about right attitude and right EQ and team health for me.
yeah. So I tend to agree, right? It's always about finding the right hire, not about, you know, the contract, whether it's a short term
Right.
or long term. Because, again, I've seen a lot of times you want to hire somebody, but that person does not want to come on a permanent basis or doesn't want to do contract, and you let go of that person just because he wants a different paperwork, in my opinion, right?
Right.
Uh, I've seen at times the HR team create so many barriers. You want to hire somebody, and they, yeah, but you know, it's did not attend one of the top schools, or did not
Right.
go to this particular, academy or whatever. It doesn't matter. I think this person is right for my team. I want, as an HR, to help me out, hire this person however we can, not create barriers in doing so, right? Anyways, moving on a bit, how many people do you currently manage, line manage in the
So
US?
yeah, so I've close to 240 people in my team.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty good. So how do you manage them? I'm sure you cannot have one on one with every 250.
sure. Yeah.
So how do you do that? What's your leadership style there?
So there are various aspects of the leadership I follow, and again, as I said, I keep experimenting those things, keep changing, reinventing the leadership style. But the number one thing I start with it, led by example. I need to make sure that I want to be the if I want to do some changes in my team, I have to be that change, right? So be the change you want to see in the world, as that's number one thing for me. If I'm not doing it, then I cannot ask them to do the same thing. The second piece is the safe and trusted culture, tolerance to failure. And trust is something, goes back to the team health. And as a matter of fact, we literally talked yesterday among some of the leaders about, how do you cultivate the trust? Trust is a base for everything in your team, right? A team, my leaders are feeling capable enough to bring up anything, right? Across themselves. So it starts with that. Once you accomplish that, then it goes to like accountability and commitment, right? Because it comes automatically. The third is I would call what I encourage is diverse experience. Strongly feel that some sort of, it doesn't have to be like a really, strong diversity, what being talked about right now. It's just, you need a diverse opinions, and that comes from a diverse culture, right?
Yeah.
So that's a key. I should be able to, state my vision clearly, ability to strategize and communicate with my team, to my set of leaders, so that when the message reaches to each and every person in my org, it's a single message, right? It's not diluted between that. Set up a measurable goals for them, because if I'm not setting a measurable goal in a definite timeline, my team will be lost because they don't know what to do, right? If I'm not setting up the right goals, not giving them a clear direction, I won't be able to manage. So and repeat this. Like you have to keep repeating this because sometimes, I'm not perfect either. So if I don't repeat the things, it's easy to get things leaked, right? And again, foster the team health. So the concept of team health is something number one, right? And it starts from there, from my team all the way to the individual contributor level. So that's been all my overall my leadership style in terms of how I work with my teams, and I help them to grow. As a
Okay,
result, I grow as well.
wonderful, man. I have a question. Like, I've been mainly a product manager, right? And then, well, I've been a technical, I can program and stuff, but I have been mainly part of product management and kind of doing dual role, product and tech leader. Um, and I have been part of a lot of communities within product management, at least in the UK. I used to run my own community as well, which I'm not doing anymore. Are you familiar with communities in your space? Tech leaders and all.
Yeah, yeah. We got like when you're in Valley, it's like so many communities. It's like it's really hard to keep track of which one you want to attend. As pre-COVID, I think we are already there now. Is pre-COVID era, there was like always 10 events different happening in the Bay Area. Like there's always something, right? Either in the SF, either in the Palo Alto, Redwood City, like all the Mountain View, all the area. There's something that's going on, right? And it's really hard to keep track of all this community. But yes, I'm a part of this community. I'm a part of the one of the local leadership community, especially on the engineering side, who focuses on the efficiency and productivity and overall how do you create a much larger innovation with the team you have. So I'm part of the community, which is what we call an angel investing, syndicate, where it has a multiple groups, startup founders, some of the great people around that community shares the idea about latest trends, their learnings. Because I think that's, when you talk about the community, without that community and connection, you can't grow. And that's one of the things I would say to anyone who's listening to this podcast is like, without network, you won't be able to go. So you have to go out, network, and follow up. Like you meet someone, and I don't do a good job at that either, right? I mean, but I'm still always trying to improve. Where if I met someone, let's say I met you today, and like within 3 months, do follow up with them, right? Do not hesitate to ask them for help. They are like what I've seen, Malik, is like in this tech community, majority of the folks, leaders, individual contributor, they are eager to help. They're eager to share their knowledge. They're eager to see if how they can grow or they can help you in any ways, right? And I've been quite fortunate to have good coworkers in my career. Fortunate to have good mentors, friends in my career, but that doesn't happen overnight,
Yeah,
as you
I
mentioned earlier.
agree. It
Yeah,
takes ages to build the network.
right,
One thing again, there is a cultural difference here. I've spent 20 years in London now in the UK. And, Brits or people, generally British culture is very tight-lipped.
right,
People are not open in asking for help. They suffer in silence, But whenever I come to Bay Area or visit the US, it's always the other way around. I become so chatty. I talk to random people, ask
right.
random stuff, and always have like some crazy conversations. Whereas here, it's like need to be careful what you ask for. You might just offend somebody by saying something, or it does not come out in the right tone, and so on. Right.
Right, right.
So I certainly miss that particular part of networking in the US. Anyways, any other tips you can give?
Yeah, no, no. As a matter of fact, like I worked in India for 2.5 years. Stayed there in the Bangalore, and I've seen even one step forward in India. Like people, like the engineers, the founders are not hesitate to send you a WhatsApp message. Doesn't matter if you're running like $200 million company, right, or a $1 billion company. And the
Yeah.
founders there are also like especially in India, they are so eager. Like they'll reply to your text messages. You'll reply like if you met them, let's say at the conference, and if you they are not hesitant to give their numbers and you will get replies for them, which is quite fascinating, honestly, to me. That okay, they care. that someone they met randomly and they're asking question there to be helped. Because what I feel, Malik, is no one asks. I mean, everyone is shy enough to ask this question. Okay, should I ask? Let's say Malik is running $1 billion company. How would he feel if I send him text message, right? But do not just take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Send Malik a message. I'm pretty sure at some point, like he's gonna see and say, well, you know what? Let me just see, like, who is this guy? Who's this girl that I met, right? And that's how you initiate the connection.
Cool, cool, right. Just talking about the current trends that we are seeing, AI is going crazy in
Yeah.
the industry. Everybody's talking about AI in every particular segment that you can think about. What are you doing? Are there any AI tools you're leveraging within your engineering practices?
Yeah, I think what I call the hype is real, right? And I have experienced that firsthand, not just using building some of the offering that it's coming out for customers. But you're right, it's impacting lives. What I feel is much more positive way. And I always take, when it comes to technology, I'm a glass half full guy, right? I always take this as a positive side of the tech. Of course, there's got the negative side of the tech, but like I don't really focus on it. I'm conscious. I learn what those negative sides are, but I'm not too much focused on it. Right now, we're going back to an AI. What I find in AI, and all the Gen AI trends that we're looking at is it has becoming more of a natural extension to the human race, right? This is what I call is how do you augment yourself, right? It's sort of your second brain, right? Think about like, that you're given a single brain, but what if you can have like a few more, right? Where you can do things much faster. Because a brain and knowledge is something which is distinguish the human race from all other races, right? And this is another brain that somehow we have created. And how do we uh, augment ourselves with that is up to us. On a day-to-day life, I use tools which help me to increase my productivity in a lot more manner, just like, of course, ChatGPT is for the most famous. Absolutely. Tech, if you're not using that now, by now, you're outdated. And I think most important is like some of the tools are so powerful that you just need to learn how to use it, right? And that's it. And that becomes, does your job really fast, like, day-to-day usage on the Copilot on the Microsoft side, absolutely, like, hands down. Some of the AI Google has came out in terms of helping you to manage your emails and being more productive. And that's really great. The companies are rolling out, the vendors that we use, right? And they're rolling out their AI offerings, and those offerings are really real. So I feel that it's definitely changing the game. One of the other innovation that I find it, which I think is overlooked because of an AI, is this the whole AR, VR world, right? And is application of it. AI, because of OpenAI and NVIDIA, and this AR and VR is getting overshadowed by this whole AI stuff. But I've used some of the products. I've tried it. Read the news how it's changing the whole landscape of the education field, the medical field, the way you interact someone with remotely. It's fascinating. It's just amazing, right? So I think in the long term, if you try the new the Apple headsets and in the experience you see, the promises it has, it's going to change the thing significantly. It's going to take some time, of course, to adopt, right? I'll give you an example. I was on a rafting trip with my son, and there was another parent like was wearing this Meta glasses, right? And she was taking pictures, she was taking videos on through it. She was like doing those things. By the time we are done with the trip, she already sent all the videos, pictures, and everything using those glasses, right? I was like, what is this? Oh, this is Meta glass. So I think these are the day-to-day use things using VR. It's going to take some time to be a mainstream, but when it will be, and you combine that with this AI, it's definitely going to change the world, how we live day-to-day life, how the kids are learning in the school, right? How can they augment themselves? It's fascinating. I think for kids who are listening to this podcast, your future is absolutely bright. Be positive. right? Adopt the technology in right manner, and yeah, you're gonna be golden.
Yeah. What are some of the tools you would recommend to programmers, software developers that they leverage in their day-to-day jobs?
Great. So we in my team, a lot of my team members use the GitHub Copilot, which is the code prompting tool. It's been really, really nice. We had a great success writing suggestions while you're writing the code. It has a great ability to give you suggestion on the what I call the writing the unit test, right? It has an ability to actually create the explanation of your code, right? So when someone is onboarding new, they can learn onboard really fast. So GitHub Copilot definitely one of them. Someone who's not native English speaker, communicating with your team. Of course, Google has a free version, but I would say Grammarly also is a really good tool, which will help you to narrate your idea if you're not a natural native English speaker, or even like if you're communicating in different languages, it has an ability to do those things. Of course, Microsoft Copilot. If you're a Microsoft fan, that's definitely something you should explore using it. There's a if you are dabbling into the Gen AI world, this tool called Poe, right? And I like the tool because what it does, it gives you ability to run your LLM models across all the providers. Means you can try Anthropic, you can try OpenAI, you can try Mistral, right? You can try all those things on a single tool, and you don't have to go to the website and do those things. It has a keys associated with, so you can see how each and every model is performing. So if you are someone who's learning, I would recommend that. And those are the, I would say, main tools on a day-to-day use. Of course, there are some other vendors that we work with who has a great tool on InfoSec side, but I'll keep it to a productivity and efficiency improvement for now.
Cool. All right, Kandarp. I think it's about time that we
Right.
start wrapping up this conversation. I think otherwise it will keep on going and on
Yes.
for hours. So we may start wrapping this one up. But before
Yeah.
we end, there are a few questions that we ask each of our guests that appear on our podcast, right? And I would love to ask you those questions to you as well. So if you're ready, right? What would you advise new graduates and junior programmers coming out for them to build their career over the next 10 years?
Great question. I wish I had a magic wand and I can just tell you what those are, right? But there are a few things that all has worked for centuries, and I'll just give you those, right? One of them is master the fundamentals, right? Doesn't matter which is you are in a tech space, you are in a finance space, you're in sports. If you master your fundamentals, you can keep up with any changes that's coming to your future, and you will excel. The second piece, I would say, define success, right? What success is for you, because success is a different, for every single individual. Do not look at someone else and make their success as your success, right? See what success is like, what satisfies you as a successful person, right? If you don't know, find mentor and find help. But that's going to be the key. The third, which I said, in my podcast, like earlier, be positive. Take always glass half full approach, because it's going to help you in long term. It might not help you in short term in some ways, but it will help you in short term. The continuous learning, just learn continuously, right? Doesn't matter which stage in life you are, there's always learning. Like I learn a lot from my kids. You can learn from each and everyday interaction with your life and anyone. Network. That's your, like, make more connection in this remote hybrid virtual world, where you're meeting less and less people and doing this remotely. It's really hard to create those connections, but please do that. And change is the only constant, I would say, for you. If you adopt that, change is the only constant, you can keep reinventing yourself. And last and least, which is the most important, community. Do not forget to give back to the community. It doesn't mean that you have to donate money or like you have to work in Kenya or somewhere for a month, right? It can be as simple as being kind on your day-to-day life, helping a kid to do, learn coding, like just anything. But please do not forget to give back to community.
Okay, great. Who is the top individual, living or dead, that motivated you the most in your life?
A great question. Most motivated person. I have two of them actually. One, as growing up, I was a big cricket fan, as you can imagine. So they call a god of cricket. His name is Sachin Tendulkar. He was my role model. And this goes back to mastering fundamentals, right? He talks about being fundamental, how you can master fundamentals and become great and reinvent yourself. The guy has a career more than 20 years. You cannot be in that business if you don't reinvent yourself as a sportsman. The second I call, which is the Bill Gates. He's one of the most, I would call, a motivational person for me. The how he started something with his dream, to put a computer in each and every home, right? And he pivoted them from, curing malaria, curing polio in the entire world, because what I feel is he has given a vision. So his vision is what I inspiring me. Like he has a vision to impact a billions of lives, not thousands or millions, right?
Yeah.
And that is quite motivating for me.
Now, I totally agree. I think personally, I also am a big fan of Bill Gates. Not a lot of people are fan of Bill Gates and Windows in general, but ignoring a few bits, I think as an individual, he's amazing. He's really good. And also about Sachin, I'm not a cricket fan. I'm an unusual Indian who does not follow cricket. uh, but I watched a documentary about Sachin, and I figured out, there's one thing he mentioned in the documentary. He mostly will was never bowled out, but whenever he got bowled out, he would practice the same bowl and the shot, like
Yeah.
1,000 times, 10,000 times, million times, until he's sure that he will not get bowled out again on the
Yeah.
same delivery. And for that, you need the focus. Playing the same shot or next 5 days, 10 days continuously is difficult, man. It's really
Yeah, it
really
is.
difficult.
It is. And again, this goes back to, again, I keep saying, maybe you're hearing this 15 times in this podcast, but mastering fundamentals, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
matter, do you learn this 20 years ago, you have to practice. You have to practice and
yeah.
master your fundamentals.
Cool, cool. All right. Who is the one person, again, living or dead, that you would like to meet?
Neat. That's a great question. And I'd go back to Bill Gates. I had an opportunity to shake hands with him like 20 years ago, just happens to be there. But if I want to grab a dinner, I would definitely have him. He's one of the guys which, and that's because he has accomplished a lot in his professional life, right? And he left that at a peak of his career to do good in the community, to cure polio, right? That was his vision. So I wish I have that ability and the vision, to impact billion lives.
Cool. Right. Who do you think we should invite to our podcast?
Oh, great question. Who should you should think? There are a lot of leaders that you can invite to your podcast. But what I would suggest is someone, who has changed their life significantly, right? Like maybe someone, and of course there are a lot of names there, but someone who has started, let's say, as in one career and has continuously failed before they found their passion at maybe age of 50 or like 60. There are great stories like that where someone started a company at like in their 40s or 50s, and finally they found what they want to do. Because I think people should hear that it's okay to be like that. It's okay not to know what you want to do like till late in your life. It's okay, right? It's don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
So if you can find someone like that, I would say please invite them, take the learning, because that is always
I think,
fascinating to me.
just thinking out on that, if I'm not wrong, then I think the founder of Webflow, Webflow CMS,
Yes, Yes.
I think he's probably one of that who initially got rejected
Yeah.
from a lot of places, and then eventually somebody funded him quite late, actually,
Yeah.
for him to come up and build this Webflow, which is, I think, I use Webflow. We use it for our main public websites, and it's
Oh, wow.
amazing. It's really amazing tool.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great tool, right? And this is where, yeah, I think someone who has done this, it's fascinating to hear their stories, like, how you not fail, you keep going after it, resiliency, with their ideas and conviction that this is what they want to do. So yeah, absolutely, that would be a great guest if you can, snap it.
Hopefully
Yeah,
soon. I think I'll try to find
yeah,
a connection, a mutual connection, who
yeah,
may introduce me to him. Right? Let's see.
yeah.
Right. Anyways, I think it's about time we've wrapped this one up. Thanks a lot, Kandarp, for
Thank
taking
you,
time
Malik.
and participating in our podcast. Right, and great to see you. After a long time.
Yeah, thanks, Malik. And good luck with Code Monk. Wish you the best, and thank you for
Cool.
having me here.
Cool. Thank you, Kanda.
Okay.
And to our listeners, if you want to listen to more of this kind of podcasts, then please subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels, or just sign up to our newsletters. And if you're a talent looking for a job, working for some of these top companies, just sign up, go to codemonk.ai and sign up as a talent. Once you get your profile created, it will get auto-matched to some of the top companies in the world. And similarly, if you're a tech manager who hate wasting time sorting the best candidate, then do sign up as an employer and let the magic of our AI help you build the best teams out there. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.